Hi guys, in this we're gonna go over topic. Whoa, what is this? Topic 9. Yes, topic 9. Fiscal policy. So we talked about this briefly in the previous chapters about how economy is always producing around this long run aggregate supply curve. So government can influence the outcome of the economy by using something called either expansionary or contractionary fiscal policy. So the goal for the economy is to stay as close to this long-run aggregate supply curve as long as possible. Because anytime you're away from it, then you're getting this disequilibrium in the economy. So if you're to the left side economy here, this will be when the unemployment is very high. Do this. So when the unemployment is very high, then you're gonna have a recession going on. On this side, you have a very low unemployment rate, but you're gonna end up with a very high inflation. So either one is bad. I can't spell. Inflation going up. Okay, so either one is bad. They want to stay on this one line as long as possible. Now, for any economy, they do follow a long-term trend. So as the economy keep going upward, you do have this long-term trend going on, and then you do have this short-term fluctuations. Ideally, you want to avoid any type of short-term fluctuations because when you fluctuate, you have this downward sloping, right? So this part over here, that's recession we don't like. This part over here, that's recession we don't like. But if you can keep the economy going up steadily, then you can avoid all the recessions. So we can use our government policies to force the economy to have a smaller fluctuations, so staying more closely to the long-term trend. Now, a little review from previous chapters. So why do we worry about so much about this recession? Is that once you have recession, so let's suppose aggregate demand curve is shifting to the right, and then you have a little new equilibrium here. And then at this new equilibrium, eventually the economy will self-adjust and you go back to your original point. But this is a very long-term shift. So during this self-correcting process, the economy will stay in this high unemployment area where many people do suffer, so that's bad, right? So we want to avoid that. And then also, if you look at the expansion, what's wrong with expansion? Again, this goes back to this self-correcting process. That suppose we have AD curve shifting to the right, and then you go from point A to point B. Now, point B, the economy is doing very, very good. That we have very low unemployment rate and then very high, over a little high inflation. But in the long-term process, once wage become flexible, your aggregate supply curve will be shifting to the right. When it's shifting to the right, you go back to point C now. But at point C, you end up with a much higher inflation. So that's the long-term problem with our expansions. If you don't fix it, you're going to end up with inflation in the economy. So before the economy self-adjusts, we should do something to push the economy back from 81 back to 80. So you go back to point A and then can avoid point C with high inflation. So what to do? So if economy experiencing high unemployment or recession, government can use something called an expansionary fiscal policy. So push the economy forward. But if the economy is experiencing high inflation, then government can use contractionary fiscal policy, try to pull back. So for expansionary fiscal policy, we're pushing the economy back to where it was before. So let's suppose your aggregate demand curve is first shift from 80 to 81. With expansionary fiscal policy, you're going to push it back to 80. So you go back to where it was before. So AD curve is shifting to the right. But if you look at the contractionary fiscal policy, well, before that, okay, so you push it back to where it was before. So by using expansionary fiscal policy, we're going to do two things: either increase government purchase or decrease our tax. Let me show you one more thing you guys probably don't remember. Remember the AD curve has 4 components, right? That your consumption plus investment plus government spending and then plus net export. So all the fiscal policy is to do with this one over here, our government spending. So when the economy is down, we have a high unemployment rate. Government can by itself increase government spending and therefore increase our aggregate demand curve to where it should be. Now, vice versa, if your economy is too hot, so aggregate demand curve too hot, we can lower our government spending and then lower the economy back to where it should be. So we can manipulate this government spending here to have a desired effect. Now, government spending has two components. First component is your government purchase. So how much money we buy, that's the government spending. The second one we mentioned on the previous slide was a tax. The tax can also impact our aggregate demand curve, which is tax is coming from the government, so it's government policy. Now, tax wouldn't impact your government purchase, but tax will impact your consumption and also part of investment. Because if you think about it, especially for consumption here, that for our consumers, how much tax you pay can really influence how much money you have. So if your tax goes higher, so higher tax, you have a lower after-tax income, then you will spend less money, consumption goes down. But if your tax goes lower, so lower tax, then our after-tax income will go higher, you have more money left over, and then consumption will increase. Okay, so for these fiscal policies, we can impact two letters here, at least two. So government spending can be impacted whenever government spending is changed, and then tax can change either our consumption and sometimes part of our investment. Okay, all right, so that's our expansionary policy, is to make the economy better, which means government can either do more purchases or decrease tax, and this will increase our after-tax income and then increase our consumption, and this will increase our government spending. Now, on the other side, if your economy is very hot, then we have this expansion here, so from point A to point B. Now, we want to cool it down a little bit. So we want to pull the AD curve back to where it was before. Then we're going to use this thing called a contractionary fiscal policy. So for contractionary fiscal policy, it will pull the AD curve back to where it was before, and then by doing two things. So either decrease government spending or increase our tax. So if you increase tax, your income, after-tax income goes down, and then consumption goes down, and that will also lower your AD curve. Okay, so two things we can do for contractionary fiscal policy. So cool the economy down by either lower government spending or increase our tax. All right, so for government's purchase here, expansionary policy can increase economy out of recession, and then for contractionary policy, we can cool the economy down to avoid any type of inflation. But there's one thing that you guys might need to know, or you definitely need to know this one, not mine, you definitely need to know this one, is something called a multiplier effect. That sometimes one little change in the economy can cause multiple changes in the economy. So imagine that we have, let's say we have a government purchase. Give me one note. So let's suppose our government decide to spend more money, so higher government purchase. Let's say government buys more computer. So government buys more computers, and then your computer companies, so PC companies, will have more money. So PC companies are better off. Once the PC company is better off, then they're going to pay employees more money, so wage goes up, and then income goes up, and then our consumption actually goes up. So if you just change your government spending, so again your AD curve equals to C plus I plus G plus NX, then if you just change your AD curve by itself, so government spending goes up, this might cause your consumption to go up, and also might cause your investment to go up as well. So one little change in government spending can cause multiple changes in the economy, and that is called a multiplier effect. Okay, so let me show you the definition. So the definition for multiplier effect is that additional dollar expenditure will result in the creation of more than $1 worth of GDP. So in our previous example, that if we just change a little bit of government spending, this will cause a change in our investment, also cause a change in our consumption, and cause a bigger change in our real GDP. So the formula for multiplier is this. is that your change in aggregate demand curve equals to the multiplier times change in government spending. And then also, guys, write this down in your notes. So multiplier for government spending, so G over here. Now there will be two multiplier effect. Okay, so the first one for government spending, the multiplier is let me show you a question first. So 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. Terrible handwriting. That's your multiplier. So 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. Now, MPC stands for marginal propensity to consume. That means for every $1 of extra income you have, how much of it would you spend on consumption? That's called MPC. Okay, so multiplier for government spending is that 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. Because the idea is that if you consume the money in the economy, then that money will be reinjected into the economy, and that will help that will help you out on the consumption and then investment. But if you don't spend the money, imagine that our PC company here. So when they're better off, and then PC company decided, what if we just save the money? So we don't increase our wage, we don't increase our consumer income, and we don't increase our consumption. So if money is saved, that wouldn't impact the economy that much. So the economy is better off if you spend the money. Okay, that's coming from this MPC. So MPC stands for marginal propensity to consume, and MPS is marginal propensity to save. Okay, so multiplier for government spending is 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. All right, so let's try a question here. So question says, determine the proper increase in government purchase if the increase in aggregate demand is needed is $100 billion and the MPC is 0.75. So first thing I'm going to do is find out what is the multiplier. Multiplier for government spending. And this equal to 1 divided by 1 minus MPC. So 1 over 1 minus 0.75. And this will be a 1 over 0.25. And that will give you a multiplier of 4. And then for our previous formula, you see the change in aggregate demand curve equals to the multiplier. Times change in government spending. So we know the change in aggregate demand curve is going to be $100 billion. Multiplier is 4. Then how much is our change in government spending? So just solve for it, the change in government spending will be just $25 billion. So which means to achieve this desired outcome of increase our GDP by $100 billion, government doesn't need to spend $100 billion. Government just need to spend $25 billion, and then with the multiplier effect, that will have a desired outcome of $100 billion. All right, so next, let's look at tax. So the other way that can change our economy is tax. So for tax, doing expansionary fiscal policy, government would decrease tax. And then doing contractionary fiscal policy, government will increase tax. And then for tax, this will impact your consumption and therefore impact your aggregate demand curve. Now, this also follows the same concept on this multiplier effect, that if you just increase or decrease tax, then additional dollars of income can also generate more than $1 of impact in the aggregate demand curve. So imagine that we have, like I say, 2 people in the economy. So person A and person B. Now let's suppose for person A, his tax goes lower. So tax for person A goes down, and then person will have more income available. And therefore person A will spend more money, so his consumption will go up. But when person A consumption goes up, he will spend the money in the economy, which means this will cause our person B's income to go up as well. And person B will spend more money as well. So one person's lower in tax can have a multiplier effect in other people's consumption as well. And also, when you have consumers spending more money, there might be more money left over for investment. Remember, investment, that's also a component in our equity demand curve, right? And that is a multiplier effect. Okay, so the multiplier effect is very similar for the government spending. Is the equity demand curve, the change in equity demand curve equals to the multiplier for tax times the change in tax. Now, the multiplier for tax is a little different than the multiplier on government spending. The multiplier on tax is your change minus MPC divided by 1 minus MPC. Okay, so negative MPC over 1 minus MPC. All right, so let's look at the question. So question says, suppose we want to use tax to change our economy, and then the change in equity demand curve needed is $100 billion, and then our MPC is 0.75. So first, we need to find out how much is our multiplier. Multiplier on tax. So it's minus MPC over 1 minus MPC. So this will be a negative 0.75. 0.75 divided by 1 minus 0.75. So this will be minus 3. That's your multiplier. And then to find out our change in tax, so your change in government spending or change in equity demand curve equals to the multiplier on tax times change in tax. So equity demand curve needed is going to be $100 billion. Multiplier is minus 3 times change in tax, and then your change in tax would just be minus $33.33 billion. Okay, so so that's how much our tax needs to change by. Now, if you see this minus sign here, the minus tax, that means we're going to give a tax cut in the economy, so lower taxes. So which means in order to achieve this $100 billion increase in equity demand curve, our government need to lower our tax by $33.33 billion. Okay, that's the multiplier. All right. Okay, so next, know what's an automatic stabilizer. So automatic stabilizer is that there are some tools in the economy, they're built into the economy. Whenever there's a shock in the economy, the automatic stabilizer will tend to stabilize the economy automatically, just like the name, right? It's an automatic stabilizer. So for automatic stabilizers, that if you have this GDP growth, so economy getting too hot, that our government tax will increase, and then our government purchase will decrease. So for one example, that our income tax, the income tax for the U.S. economy is based on the tax bracket. So the higher income you have, so income goes higher, your tax rate will be higher as well, and that's automatic. Okay, so we don't have to do any policy change. If our consumer tax income goes up, then our tax rate automatically increases. And then for government purchase, think this like the social benefit programs, so such as Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, especially many of the welfare programs. So for poor people, so if our economy is getting better, then those poor people they were relying less on the government, so can lower our spending. For example, for like a food stamp we lower spending, right? Because that people don't need that anymore. Now on the other side, if the economy goes down, so GDP reduction, so lower GDP, lower income, and because remember this income tax is a tax bracket, so the lower money you have, the lower tax rate you will pay, right? So tax automatically goes down, and also if you have no money now, you might need more government assistance. So food stamp goes up, your unemployment benefit goes up, so those government purchase also increases. Okay, so those are called automatic stabilizers. So they're in the economy, they can stabilize the economy automatically, both in the taxation part and then also in the government spending part. All right, so almost finished. So your fiscal policy is not perfect. There are some limitation for fiscal policy. The biggest problem for fiscal policy is a timing issue, that our government is always slow to react. So 3 lags that will cause your fiscal policy to be too slow. they're called recognition lag, which means it takes some time for our government to realize the problem. Legislative lag also takes some time for our government to pass a policy, and an implementation lag, that means it takes some time for our government to have the policy to take into effect. So because it's 3 lag over here, by the time the policy is fully into effect, it might be too late already. So imagine if your economy is going through this normal process going up and down, right? Now imagine that our government we notice the problem too late. It takes time to legislative to pass the law, and also take time to have this policy to take into effect implementation. So once that happens, we don't need a stimulus anymore, because you can at this point, that's when the economy is in recession, want to increase government spending, right? But by the time this taking into fully effect, the economy already self-recovered and it's already in the expansionary phase. And then if you do a government policy, it wouldn't go back to your normal rate, actually push it too high. So that might be making economy even worse. So that's the problem for our fiscal policy. It is timing issue. Okay. All right, guys. So that's it for this chapter. Have any question? Let me know. All right. Bye bye.